Yeah, apropos of nothing, I was just thinking about the following topic yesterday for some reason, I don't know why, and that is to what extent do we rely on polygraph or on lie detector tests in Halacha or in Beis Din? I thought it was an interesting thing, so I started searching around a little bit. Apparently there was an article in 2009 in the Jerusalem Post about a rabbinical court in Haifa this week forced a woman in the midst of a divorce case to undergo a lie detector test to determine if she was a drug user and had cheated on her husband. The court said that the test could help determine whether the mother was fit to have custody over her children, and went on to explain how this overturned the previous precedent, which was set by Rav Waldenberg, the Tzitz Eliezer, where he said that a lie detector test has no place in Halacha, and it has absolutely nothing to do with Halacha. So, interesting discussion. What exactly is the role? Does it have any role? What if someone failed the lie detector test? What does that mean about their ability to be an aid? What does that mean about their ne'emanus in general as a baldin in terms of edus? So there is there are several articles in Tchumen going back and forth about this issue and published elsewhere as well. So one of the Dayanim, Rav Elazar Shapira, quoted first to just figure out whether the Beis Din should try to impose it. Someone comes and says testimony or claims to know a story to be true. So should Beis Din say, okay, now take a lie detector test so that we can determine the veracity of this? So he brings a raya from a Tshuvas Chasam Sofer, Nebuchadnezzar Chelik Beis, from Kufay and Dalid, where the Chasam Sofer makes it very clear that a Beis Din is not obligated to go look for Eidim, for instance. Meaning Eidim showed up to Beis Din, so the ones that showed up, you have to be Mekabel, they're Eidos, you have to go through the process. But they don't have to go around posting signs everywhere and going on social media looking for more Eidim. They don't have to go looking for Eidim. Whatever evidence is there, whatever evidence is not there, is not there. So Rav Eliezer Shapiro suggested that the same is true with the lie detector test. Why do they have to go and impose something else in order to find a greater level of evidence one way or the other? Now, one could argue that that's true, that Beis Din doesn't have to initiate, but this was a divorce case, which you can bet that Beis Din didn't initiate it. It was the husband that initiated it. He said, I wanted her to pass a lie detector test that she wasn't on drugs at the time. So maybe when the Baldin initiates the demand, so maybe that would require Beis Din to follow up on that. But the bigger question is it admissible as evidence in Beis Din? So Rav Waldenberg and Rav Shapiro both said that it has absolutely no validity. Al Pishnayim Eidim Yakum Davar. We only trust Eidos. We don't trust anything other than Eidos. But there's trust and there's trust, right? Meaning we don't have absolute ne'emanus on anything other than Shnei Eidim. However, the poskim seem to assume that it at least creates an umdana demuchach. Now, what is the role of an umdana demuchach? So an umdana demuchach, the Marik writes in the Tshuva in Klal Kuf Chaf Tes that an umdana demuchach could do one might want to use an umdana demuchach for one of two ways. For one thing, it's valid. For something else, it's not valid. He says umdana demuchach is when it can be used when you know the exact metzius of the case. You know exactly what happened. You're not sure of the intentions of one of the parties, the kavanas of somebody. So that's where you use an umdana demuchach to be able to determine what a person's kavana was. But an umdana demuchach is not going to help you determine what actually happened. It's not going to be able to help you determine what the facts of the case are, what the metzios of what actually happened are. So maybe one could suggest the same thing when it comes to a lie detector test. Now, it could be that it's a partial basis of something, that it's part of the larger body of evidence that a Beis Din is going to take into account because it's an umdana demuchach. Now, in the Tshuvas Emek Halacha Chelik Beis Siman Yudalid, he says it's at least enough to disqualify witnesses. Meaning, if they've already taken a lie detector test and the witnesses failed the lie detector test, that's enough of a reason to say that these witnesses should be puzzled and you should not accept their eidos. But are there any rayas? Like, where are you going to bring a raya from, whether such a thing could be accepted or not? So Rav Waldenberg brings a raya from the Gemara Rosh Hashanah Daf Chaf Aleph about Shlomo HaMelech, where the Gemara essentially says that Shlomo HaMelech was really, really smart, and he wanted to judge cases based on his own intuition, based on his own what his heart was telling him. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, sorry, you're not allowed to do that. Those aren't the rules. The rules are that you need eidos. So Rav Waldenberg says, even Shlomo HaMelech's wisdom wasn't enough to rely on. When you need eidos, you need eidos. So what might get to the crux of the issue of what these Dayanim were arguing about is a polygraph more reliable than Shlomo HaMelech's wisdom, right? Meaning which one is more reliable. The other raya that they bring is the Gemara in Ksubim Ksubas, Taf Pei Hey. So it's not apropos of nothing. Yeshiva's learning Ksubas is here. So Gemara in Ksubas, Taf Pei Hey tells us that Rava had an enormous amount of trust in his wife. He had a certain knowledge in a particular case of where the knowledge was gained only because his wife had told him that something was so, and therefore he was willing to accept it. However, the Rambam in Hilchos Sanhedrin, Parachav Dalet, Halacha Beis, says we don't trust such things, that we don't do that. That if you know from someone that you trust, or your wife, or whatever, where she's not a kosher aid, and there's no actual halachic ne'emanus, the fact that you know in your heart that this person is telling the truth, that's not enough to determine something in a Beis Din. So the Tashbeitz in Chelik Aleph Siman Pei says, what's the difference between the case of Rava, where we're not going to trust that, and Numdana Demuchach, where apparently we do trust Numdana Demuchach to some extent. So he says the difference is whether it's personal or universal. That when it comes to something that is your personal feeling, because of your personal relationship with your personal wife, so that we have a takana that we're not going to accept. That's what the Rambam was talking about. It's already takana from the days of the Goanim, that we don't accept any such thing. But when it's something that's universally recognized as an umdad muchach, that this is what likely happened, that we do give a certain degree of ne'emanus too. Another raya that they bring in this context of whether you can trust it at all is a Gemara in Maseches Sota. The Gemara in Maseches Sota, Daf Yutes and Beis, talks about a woman who's a suspected sota that refuses to drink the mei hamarim. And the Gemara says, so that should be a raya that she's guilty. Why is she refusing to drink? So the Gemara says, no, it's reasonable to assume that she knows that these waters are very dangerous, and that she thinks that maybe even if she's innocent, it's just such a scary situation that even if she's innocent, it's gonna hurt her one way or the other. And that makes her nervous. So some of the poskim say, Rav Waldenberg points out, so we see that even a person who's innocent could sometimes appear to be very, very nervous. How does the whole polygraph work? That it works by testing how nervous you are. So it could be just going through this whole ordeal makes a person so nervous that they're going to fail the polygraph, and therefore it's totally inadmissible, as you see from the Gemara in Sota. Now, the people who administer polygraph tests will tell you that there's nervous and there's nervous. They could tell what kind of nervous you are, whether you're just nervous about the whole situation or whether you're nervous because you're lying. I don't know the chachma of it, but somehow they do, and they say that there's a difference between the two. Right. So they have some baseline, and they are able to figure out based on that. Okay, yeah. So Baruch Hashem, I saw enough movies as a kid that this much I know. So the other role that it might play is at least as an intimidation factor, meaning it should Beis Din use it to intimidate witnesses into telling the truth. Or Balei Din into telling the truth. We do find that we do intimidate witnesses, right? That the Gemara in Sanhedrin tells us in a number of different, even in Dinei Mamana's context, but certainly in Dinei Nefash's context, we intimidate witnesses. So the Mishnah in Sanhedrin Daf Chaf Tes tells us that we put them in a room alone when separate from the other one, and we scare them and we tell them that tell us how much tell us how you know that this one owes that one money or whatever, and we go through this level of intimidation. And the Shulchan Aruch passes this in Choshen Mishpat Siman Chav Ches that we tell them that if you're saying Edus Sheker, then it's going to have very, very serious consequences. So there is some sort of level of intimidation. However, the intimidation that we find in the Gemara and in the Mishnayos is always of Eidim. It's not of the Balei Din. In the case under discussion, in 2009, whatever it was about the woman and the husband who were fighting each other. So they were the Balei Din. They weren't really the Eidim. I don't think we have such clear evidence ever of intimidating Balei Din in the Mishnayos and the Gemara. Now, in Chashukei Chemer and Bamitzia Daf Lamed Zayin, Rav Zilberstein quotes that his father-in-law, Rav Eliashiv, held that a polygraph test has the status of rove, without commenting on whether Beis Din should use it, shouldn't use it, but if it's already there, if you already have it, that it would have the status of a rove. So to whatever extent you would treat a ruba de lesa kaman in determining your psak halacha, so that's how much you determine in that case. I think they say it's about 90% accurate, which is not very high, meaning it's not like DNA. DNA, which is closer to 99% accurate. So like for heteroagunos and things like that, in World Trade Center agunos, so there's a lot of discussion about using DNA evidence, and that was used to a large degree. We'd be much less likely to be matir agunos based on something like this. So there's just some of the Rashi Prakim and some of the interesting rayas that I came across yesterday. Okay, everyone have a great day.